So I was asked in one of my recent videos on financial reform and land value taxation, where I basically laid out some of my economic views again, whether this panacea I was talking about was what if the reason why it hadn't been implemented was because of a bunch of evil bankers who were plotting to stop the world, who were plotting to keep these solutions from us. And you know, I mean, it's kind of a sarcastic, condescending way of looking at it. But the short answer is, yeah, yeah, they do. I mean, it's not that I think the bankers themselves are evil. And there are many good bankers, particularly small bankers. But the point is, the institution of banking in our country, in our society, is corrupt. It's not that I would want to get rid of banking altogether. It's just that it needs reform, and um, the way it's set up right now is it's set up to serve the interests of a small financial elite at the expense of the broader public. And so, if you want to talk about that in conspiratorial terms, that's fine. In a sense, it is a conspiracy, but it's a more of an it's more of an institutional conspiracy than a sort of than a conspiracy involving like actual people getting together to try to plot these things. Um, and I think that that's kind of what my view on conspiracy theories is. I think if you want to look at the real conspiracies that go on in the world, um, don't look for explosives in the World Trade Center. Don't look for the second gunman on the grassy knoll. Look for how you know financial elites are basically preserving their privileged status in society. Um, Look at what the wealthiest people on the top do to stay on top, and it's sort of a conspiracy of complacency. It's out in the open. I mean, there are former members of Goldman Sachs. They're in the Obama administration right now. They're ones that were in the Bush administration too. Um, there's a revolving door in Wall Street with government, with the international lending institutions like the World Bank and the IMF. Um, many former IMF um, and World Bank workers end up going to work for major Wall Street firms, and so it is, in a sense, it's like they're always working for them. And so, if you study the sort of behavior of the World Bank and IMF in the third world, you realize it becomes pretty clear very quickly that their actions do not tend to have good consequences for the people of those countries, but rather tend to benefit investors on Wall Street. And so, you know, it, and I don't think they get together and tell them and say, I'm going to ruin this country so that Wall Street can make a huge profit. No, I mean, I think people tend to justify what they're doing by through these ideologies, and people tend to adopt an ideology that suits what they're doing at the moment. That suit you know yeah, I think that, and that I think is why some of the reforms that I'm talking about are so hard to implement. It's not they're not difficult to implement in terms of the changes that they'd have to do. If everyone could agree to implement them, it'd be really easy to do. But the matter of getting the political will to do them is the real uh, is a real problem, because there's so much influence on special interests who have have a vested interest in not reforming our society. There, yeah, the con. So I guess what I'm saying is the real conspiracy is those who have a vested interest in the status quo. Yeah, it's not about them trying to herd us into FEMA camps. It's about them um, preventing us from realizing our maximum potential. And I'm very optimistic about how that can change over time. Um, no tyranny lasts forever. All tyrants fall. Uh, there are always paradigm shifts, and the obstacles that seemed impossible at one time, have a great way of falling to the side and allowing for great progress to be made. I mean, just imagine, in the 16th or 17th century. So I'm suggesting that within the next couple of centuries, slavery would be abolished in most of the world. You know, slavery had been around since the beginning of civilization, and it's been abolished. And yeah, I mean, there are some countries of the world where it's where it's still practiced traditionally, and and there are also, yeah, and you can also make arguments about modern forms of slavery, wage slavery, debt slavery, things like that. But slavery as it was known then is pretty much gone in the modern world. So I think if we can transcend an institution like that, I think that we can transcend these other oppressive institutions that hold us back. However difficult and overwhelming these problems may seem at the time, um, I think that the human spirit is strong. We have a great capacity for overcoming these powerful interests and powerful obstacles. Um, and I think that in a sense, I kind of have a sort of mix of optimism and pessimism. It's like, in a sense, I see all these catastrophes that are happening in the world, like that oil spill right now, like the financial crisis, and I think it's really scary times we're living in. But my hope and prayer is that it will wake people up. That this will give us a great impetus to actually do something about the world we live in and make a lot of progress really quickly. So I guess I'll leave it at that for now. Peace.